Okay, next one. I sat at that event with Achieve and I looked at those speakers and I only went because I was getting my feet wet for the first time after being gone from Achieve for 2 years because my limiting beliefs would not let me show up again. And I'm like, so I said I was ready. Had my courage up. I went to the conference. I only stayed a couple hours each day just to get my feet wet, just to be back around people. I'd been isolating for 2 years. I'd been coaching, but my coaching business fell apart. And I sat in that chair and I watched those speakers and they had brilliant things to say. And I'm repeating this, but I want you to hear it again. And I said to myself, how many people literally are going to go out and get started? How many people really are going to do this? And 2 weeks ago, I went to university and I sat there 9 hours each day and I listened. And my limiting beliefs were going a mile a minute over my left shoulder. And I'm like, wait a minute. I wanted to say, F you, I'm not listening. But I said, okay, thank you for sharing because I'm not going to believe you. That's what I did say. I heard him going the whole time. Like, I can't do this. I've got too much on my plate. I have to go out and make money. I have to get clients. I have to do this. I have to do that. I'm like, missed half of what they were teaching because all of what's going on in the mind back here. I'm like, no, we are not listening to those limiting beliefs. This dilemma is not your fault. We have a negative bias that we were built from the caveman because we had to run from the lions, tigers, and bears. And in order to save ourselves, the limiting belief actually is, and Kathy talked about this in her class, it started to protect you. But right now, you don't need any protection. You're an adult, you're a big person, you know the difference, you don't have to buy into it. We're going to talk about that next week on how to identify them and how to quiet them down. I don't believe there's any cure. I was listening to a podcast the other day on a guy that got up, a neurosurgeon talking about, and it wasn't the one I'm going to bring up next, talking about limiting beliefs. And he asked the audience, how many people don't have any limiting beliefs? And 4 or 5 people raised their hand. And he said, you know what, to the rest of the audience, don't believe a word they say, they're lying. Sometimes you're not even aware that you've got this dialogue going on in the back of your mind. And these are the kind of things it says to yourself, especially if you make a mistake. Oh, the next time a limiting belief comes up is when you're faced with a big project that you're doing and you are really wondering, can I pull this off? Can I pull this off? Love Eckhart Tolle. Here's what he says. As it is, I would say about 80 to 90% of most people's thinking is not only repetitive and useless, but because of its dysfunctional and often negative nature, much of it is also harmful. Observe your mind, and you will find this to be true. It causes a serious leakage of your vital energy. I found out that was my truth. This kind of compulsive thinking is actually an addiction. What characterizes an addiction? Quite simply this. You no longer feel that you have the choice to stop. It seems stronger than you. You do have the choice.